Thank you so much for staying tuned to TV47, your home of untold stories. Tonight, being a Wednesday, we're going to be having the marketplace. We have with us, of course, a member of parliament who sits in the finance committee, and we have an independent economist who is going to be breaking down what exactly the Finance Act means to normal businesses and to small businesses across the country. We have a couple of facts that are going to be used in our particular discussion this evening. Some of the implications that the Finance Act is going to have on businesses. We have 4 major sectors that the president and the current government is focusing on, and these 4 sectors are apparently some of the sectors that are being hit the most by the Finance Act, or that are going to be giving the most tax from the Finance Act. The agricultural sector, the MSME economy, we have affordable housing, and we also have the digital superhighway and the creative economy. Some of the numbers that we're going to be crunching that can bring us up to par with this particular conversation, we're going to be breaking it down with you. Biego Mishimiwa, if you could just tell us, now that the president has just spoken about agriculture as a main giver to the economy, and he has spoken about how we are going to be cutting 1,000 shillings from fertilizer prices so that we can have, gains in the long term. What exactly does this mean to the Kenyan people in the long term?
Well, thank you so much for that. And of course, we are all alive that what the Kenya Kwanza government is actually up to is on reducing production. And one major component of the farm is fertilizer and the seeds. And now that we are subsidizing, or rather now that the fertilizer price is going low, what it's going to mean is that we are going to have production which will have less amount of money which has been produced, products which have been produced less. So that will exactly mean that it will bring the cost of those particular products lower. Like now, the flour will come lower in the long run.
So you're saying that when fertilizer prices have been reduced, it will have a long-term impact on normal commodities in the household. Tuva, if you could just tell us, as an economist, is this a plausible thing? Before we dive into the Finance Act, this is something that is current, that is happening today, 1,000 shillings in the long term. The short rainy season is coming. What does this mean for the Kenyan people?
Okay, as Mheshimiwa said, thank you very much for having me. As Mheshimiwa said, in the long run, we are trying to encourage farmers to actually do more farming. Yeah. So at the end of it all, it means more people, even those who are not farmers, will also start doing farming because of the cheap fertilizer and so on. So all in all, we'll be seeing more production in the future. Maybe more production means a bit of the cost going down after some time. Yeah, so in the long run, it's a good thing for the economy.
Just yesterday, the president was speaking about some of, the highlights of his tenure now that he is 1 year in. He said that the Finance Act is one of the things that are going to propel this country economically to where he envisions it to be in the next 5 years or so. He spoke about the Finance Act in, saying that a lot of Kenyans don't necessarily hate the Finance Act. They just think that maybe the Finance Act cannot be used to implement what exactly was promised. What are your thoughts about this?
I think it's a double-edged sword. Yeah. To start with, taxing people, it's not really a really popular thing to actually do. But in the long run, we had maybe 2 or 3 different options to handle this particular situation. Going back to the lenders and telling them we cannot pay them or we need more time to pay them was not one of them. Would be very negative to us. Telling people that we're not going to spend with the government, they must spend. So the other option was just to help us to help us deal with the situation, was to make sure that we're actually taxed. So it's not very popular, but in the long run, I feel it's going to be a good idea. Things like the housing levy being rendered to most of the employers. Of course, no one wants to lose 2,500 or whatever amount, the 3% of your child's salary. But if you look at it critically, you're talking about something like, if you look at someone who was maybe earning 50,000, basically the difference between what they used to earn back then and now that the Finance Act has been implemented is around 1,500 bob. So unless someone really sits down and understands what's actually going on, they might feel that it's a bit stressful, but it's something which I feel is manageable, and in the long run it will really be something for us.
Maybe we could have that clip playing of President Ruto and his sentiments from yesterday when the cabinet secretaries were signing new contracts.
The animation which characterized national and parliamentary debate over Finance Act is, in my view, had more to do with the absence of a consistent culture of promise-keeping in our politics and of faithful alignment between government policy and the people's aspirations. Some Kenyans are even suspicious that we are implementing revenue measures without any intention to deliver any public services at all, let alone the elaborate agenda that we have set out. While I appreciate the goodwill and concern, I wish to state in no uncertain terms, in order to clear any confusion and to give comfort to all Kenyans, that this administration is committed, fully committed, to the implementation of the pledges and commitments contained in our bottom-up economic transformation agenda plan.
That's the president talking about why exactly the Finance Act is not being perceived or taken very well by the Kenyan people, and maybe even saying that he further goes on to say that the Finance Act is exactly what the country needs. Now, we are just going through a couple of the numbers and the implications that this has had on Kenyan businesses, especially small businesses. If we could just have that running. The agriculture sector, farm tools are moved from zero rated to exempt. We have the MSME economy, where the turnover tax has been moved from 1% to 3%. And these are just businesses that are earning 1 million to 25 million shillings. Now, the SMEs who earn 25 million to 50 million shillings have been moved up the corporate rate to 30%. So they no longer pay the 1% that they were used to as turnover tax, and maybe even the threshold that was used to measure this has been moved up, because the government is looking to expand the revenue collection and the revenue collection net to bring in more money. 200 billion is what we're talking about in the next financial year that could be brought by the Finance Act. Mheshimiwa, maybe if I could just throw this to you. Some of these businesses were used to only paying 1 million shillings. 1% of 1 million shillings is fairly small amount of money. Now to 3%. And now the small businesses, which were used to only paying that 1% of turnover tax, are going to be paying a whopping 30%. Do you think that this is this too big of a jump, or is this, fair?
Well, to me, I think this is long overdue, and the only problem that I see people trying to dwell on is what has been added. But why don't we talk about also those advantages, the many other things that have been reduced? For sure, we've just been talking about fertilizer, and there's now the zero rating on the raw materials that are used for local manufacturing of fertilizer. That has been reduced. Zero rating on maize, wheat, and cassava flour is also something that we need to know that it has gone low. There is also the zero rating on raw materials for the manufacture of vaccines. So there is so much that also is good and has been reduced in this particular the bill, which is now an act. And it's a give and take situation. Who tells you that the 1% was enough as at that time? Why the country was not moving forward is because we were not having enough resources to at least ensure that the government programs going forward. So we need infrastructure, we need electricity, we need roads and many things. And if we don't get it right on the tax, then it means we will not have the development in this country. So I believe that the problem with many Kenyans is that they tend to look at what has been increased, but not what has been reduced. It's a give and take situation. So I think that it is good we give the Kenya Kwanza time, because it is the manifesto that we sold to the people, and it's just a matter of time that you'll see a total difference. Many countries, even the developed countries like US and all those countries, people pay tax. The only problem with here now is that the fear of the unknown, because you're talking about 1%. If it is added to 3%, you may have been actually on comfort zone on that 1% for a long time. So if there's a slight addition, there should be no problem.
Mheshimiwa, I think it's very interesting that you would say that, but don't you think that a lot of businesses that were employing people, if this particular turnover tax is increased from 1% to 3%, that they would cut costs by firing some of their staff?
But now, what about, we have put tax on importation. We are now, or what the Kenya Kwanza government is doing, is that it wants to promote local manufacturers, meaning that we are going to increase the number of people who are going to be employed. And even by reducing now the farm imports means that we will need also many people working on those farms, because there will be now many people who are working in the farms. So it's a net off. I'm not seeing any issue there.
Well, of course, that is your opinion. You're saying that this is a give and take situation. The president in the clip just said that he believes that the economy is now stable. The inflation rate has dropped to 7.3% from last month, which was 7.6%. However, this drop in inflation is not being felt in the price of commodities. If you could just tell us, or just simplify this to the ordinary Kenyan, why can't I see the price of sugar going down now that I'm seeing inflation is dropping?
Okay. First of all, even before we go to that, I wish to respond to Mheshimiwa. And you see, if a young SME, the percentage profit is around 5%, 10%. Those are the kind of margins people work with. So if you're looking at someone taking 3% from you, it's really quite an impact. The Kenya Kwanza government is saying that, you know, we're only losing, or KEPSA was saying, okay, fine, at the end of the day, we're losing almost 100,000 people being employed. Mm-hmm. Okay, the government say, okay, fine, we'll bring in 100, we'll bring in 1 million jobs. Right. The question is, what is the quality of jobs you're getting? A million shillings, right? The million people who are being employed. So before we say this is like and like, I really feel there's a bit of a disconnect. Saying that you're removing 100,000, a certain quality of employees from circulation to bring in 1 million people who are maybe earning less than 15,000, 20,000, 15,000. I don't think it's like and like. That's one. So the issue is saying that increasing the levies from 1% to 3% is almost negligible. It's not, because trust you me, people feel it, right? You're talking about someone who has maybe 10, 20 employees. That additional amount you're adding in terms of the housing levy, this is figures adding to someone's budget. You're looking at also the person whose money is being taken or whose money is being used for these particular projects. There's really no clear indication where is the money going, what is the interest. Yeah, so there's a lot of things which still need to be addressed before people feel comfortable. The uncomfort is not because people don't want to give out the 3% or up to 2,500 bob. The issue is that people don't understand where the money is going. You're looking at a case where we do have another fund like that called NSSF, which has been there for the last, ever since I was born, I think. And if you look at it correctly, we've not seen an audited report in the last 3 years, right? And even that one, you see almost 4 different pages of people. I don't know whether it's intentionally or they don't know what they're doing, but someone literally buying stock which, you're taking people's funds and buying stock which does not make sense. You're talking about people buying infrastructure which is obviously inflated.
Right. People
buying racks of land which is obviously inflated. So there's a lot of games and tricks being played, and that's why people are very nervous about, people are very nervous about this 3%. If they could sit down and say, okay, fine, okay, the money will be there for 7 years, after which, it's almost parapoter. As I say, you're not sure whether you're going to get the funding. What is the criteria? It's not defined yet, right? Apparently, it's going to be defined once you start paying, which is very unfair. You cannot tell me to pay for something, then much later tell me, okay, fine, this is how your money is going to be used. So if the government could sit down and figure out how do we make these people comfortable, right? So I feel even before we proceed to start implementing actually the Finance Act, all these items need to be clear, so that people jump into this particular project all with the same agenda. You're talking about saying investors will come and build the properties. Investors will come in. Are they local investors? Are they international investors? What kind of deals are we making with them?
Right.
Yeah.
Tuva, you have very valid concerns, and I think we should give Mheshimiwa some time to give a rebuttal for this. He says there's not enough clarification. He's saying that 1 million shillings, if a business, especially for the border sector, the mamambogas, they're earning 1 million shillings in a year. If you increase this from 1% to 3%, it's going to have very heavy implications on them. What do you say about that?
First and foremost, I don't know whether we're talking about the same thing, because when you're talking about the 3% of housing, it is 1.5. It's 1.5, so it is not 3%. And we need to factor in that when we talk about people losing employment, why aren't we also saying the number of people who are going to be employed when these houses are being built? The housing program is quite important and key for us, because what is going to happen is that you're going to get advantage twice. One, you're going to be able to employ thousands of youths who now do not have jobs. And number two, we'll ensure also that those people who are living in slums, who are living in low cadre houses, would get housing. What he's saying is that they do not, it's the uncertainty, they do not know, but
right.
People have not got enough information about this Finance Act. And
right.
that is...
Mheshimiwa, who exactly is the person who will give clarification? And maybe for our viewers who are watching this, it's not a 3% levy, it's a 1.5% taxation taken every single month. A levy would have, the Kenyans will be able to take this money after 7 years. That was the initial plan, but now it's no longer the plan that is going. It's just a taxation like NHIF and SSF, and you will not be getting anything from it.
Yes, sure.
Of course, that clarification needed to be made. But if you could just tell us, who exactly is the person who is giving Kenyans clarification on this?
Well, the ministry, and you've seen also the PS on record all the time trying to explain to the people. We as the Finance Committee, in fact, it was 3%, and then later, due to public participation, there were so many players who came in and gave their suggestion, and that is why we finally landed onto the 1.5 after listening to the views of the people. What I've only realized and what I've known with Kenyans, they are very rigid when it comes to change. We have to start from somewhere, and this is where we are supposed to start from. This is a new government, a government that wants this country to move forward. And what I may only agree with my brother here is that the conversation that we should be having right now here is how are we sure that the monies that are being collected are well utilized? That should be the conversation. But whether or not that people are supposed to pay tax, if the tax is high or low, it's neither here nor there.
Right,
Yes.
right, Mheshimiwa. I will throw this back to you in a minute. However, you have said that it's a fairly young government. However, again, the president was very confident in saying that the economy has now stabilized, and I will again throw this question to you. Inflation is at 7.3%. What exactly does this mean for the ordinary mwananchi? Why am I not seeing these prices changing?
Okay, you see, we don't live in a bubble. There's a general, it's a global whatever. So even if things are low on this side, the dollar is actually working also on this other side. So the balance somehow is not equal. So you're realizing that, for example, if someone was buying, let's say, unga at X amount, and there's some other expenses which come and also increase your expenses, there's really no balance. So that if for example, all matters were constant, right, then if someone can be able to actually see the difference. But because the other factors running around, we cannot really feel it solidly. Mm-hmm. Yes, yeah. Mm-hmm.
You have spoken. Before I come to you, Mheshimiwa, I will throw this question so you can clarify whatever you need to say. But affordable housing, you had said, now we're talking about 1.5% and not 3%, as was initially agreed upon. However, this is a taxation. What are the steps that the government is taking to clarify this to Kenyans? Because a lot of Kenyans don't know that this amount has A, been reduced, and B, that they now will not be getting anything back after 7 years.
Well, the clarification is there. Like now, when I have come to TV here, and I've always been seeing members who are coming here to clarify. The PS is also clarifying. They are usually in the papers everywhere. So I believe that if you are feeling that people do not know, then what we now need to do is to actually do publicity. If it means we need to actually publish it in the papers again, right, or in the radios, then so be it. Mm-hmm. But what we are saying and what I'm saying is that if you were asked today, you want the status quo to remain, or what do you exactly want the country to do? You can remember, you're talking about how long you're not seeing things moving. We've just told you, or I've just told you that what the government is doing is we are trying to deal with production.
Mheshimiwa, maybe just
lower the cost of production.
Of course,
which will take some time.
Right. Lowering the cost of production is all well and good. However, a lot of Kenyans are concerned that some of the things or some of the clauses that are cutting costs are not cutting costs that are beneficial to them. For example, rental income or rental tax that is usually paid by landlords has been reduced from 10% to 7.5%. The ordinary mwananchi, the hustler, as you would call them, they don't feel like they are benefiting from this finance bill, and I will throw it back to you also. But can you just tell us, how are you addressing these particular concerns?
Well, as you rightfully put it, and is that we reduced the rental income from 10 to 7.5%. Don't you think that is something good? But
it's not hitting the people who are at the bottom of the pyramid.
Well, I've also wanted to just tell you that in the Kibaki government, it took him around 3 years for things to stabilize. And what I'm telling you right now is that because our system or our mode is not an immediate action, you need to wait. Farmers have gone to plant. Then once that produce is received, and that one I would approximate it to be after the harvest, then you definitely see things changing.
Right.
The only problem right now you see is that even this Finance Act has not taken off because of many of these issues, which the court cases surrounding it.
Okay.
So there's a lot of disturbance and interruption, plus the mandamanos and so forth. Otherwise, we would have right now been talking differently. So just give it a bit of time, and then you're going to see things coming. No, it's not an immediate action.
Right. Mheshimiwa is saying fertilizers, the fertilizer prices going down might have a long-term effect on the cost of living, and Kenyans should just be patient. What is your view on this? Do you think that fertilizer prices, which is a matter that the government has put a lot of effort into, is end-all, be-all?
Not really, but I think at the end of the day, to support him also, at the end of the day, I feel it's production. The same way they're expecting the people who are investing in property, they're encouraging, it's a way of facilitating production. They're really encouraging them. What I'm trying to say is not everything that they're doing is bad. So in this particular case, they're encouraging people, right, to invest in property, right? Tell them, okay, fine, we'll not charge you the 10%, right? We'll bring it to 7.5. So at the end of the day, they're trying to push all productions from all sides.
Right.
The fertilizers for the farmers, real estate, and I'm sure there's some other actions they're also taking to make sure that the boosting productivity. The only thing is that they are doing it at a very high level. So yeah, very high level, and maybe the guys who will not feel it so much is the people on the lower side, the common mwananchi.
Right, you're saying?
Why do you think the common mwananchi won't fail, whereas we have also removed excise duty on electric motorcycles? And that is going to actually bring down the costs by around, operational costs by around 50%.
Right. Mheshimiwa, but a lot of Kenyans would argue that the initial buying price for these particular motorcycles are not within the price range that Kenyans are used to. If, for example, the usual, fossil-fueled motorcycle goes for around 80,000 shillings, the electric one is above 180,000 shillings. Do you think that maybe that is a far-reaching dream and it's a pipe dream?
No, you see, it is what is the mentality of people. Even before it takes off, you are also thinking negative, that it is so high.
Okay.
Let's wait for the implementation, and then that's the right time when you're going to say something is high or not. Because even these fossil motorcycles, you are being told that it is going to reduce, these electric ones are going to reduce the cost of maintenance by 50%, and even the fuel itself that it's taking by 50%. So within even that 1 year, then somebody has saved big time, has actually doubled. So those are some of the things. I've also told you about the reduction of excise duty on vaccines.
Right.
When we were hit by COVID-19, we were actually expecting, or we were waiting for importations for vaccines. But now we will have our own vaccines.
Right.
God forbid, if another pandemic is to come or something of that sort, then we are okay.
Right.
Even the pharmaceuticals, we have removed excise duty on the pharmaceuticals. Yeah.
Mheshimiwa, 80% of businesses in Kenya are micro, small and medium enterprises. You're talking about the pharmaceutical industry, so to speak. How will this help those, cottage industries that are employing 2 to 5 people?
Well, small is when you say small, what do you exactly mean? Because if somebody is able to make 1 million shillings, are you saying that is small? Where does small, or where does it start from? Where's the cutoff?
The textbook definition of a micro, small and medium enterprise is an enterprise that employs between 2 to 5 people to at most 8 people, if we're talking
making how much?
Enterprises. I would assume it's 1 million shillings.
But that's big. That's a millionaire. Those are millionaires.
Millionaires, it's a year. We're talking about 1 million shillings a year. That's less than 100,000 paying people. I will throw it back to the Economist. If you could just tell us, now that we're talking about the Finance Act cutting a lot of costs for what people would call multinational and conglomerate and huge industries, where does this leave the cottage industries?
I'll tell you for free, we're going to lose a lot of people are going to lose their jobs, because a normal employer will look at, okay, does it really make sense? If I was paying, let's say, X amount last month, why would I want to pay more? It doesn't make business sense. I'll move more into automation and the like. And you realize some of these, I wouldn't call them taxes, but some of these levies being charged are not, they don't have a cap Yeah, things like the health sector, it doesn't really have a specific upper limit. So at the end of the day, they are going to feel it, especially SMEs, right? So again, the margins are small. We're not really making so much. So telling someone, okay, fine, give us almost half of your profit is not really adding up.
Right. Of course, we have a clip to that effect. One of the employers and people in the e-commerce sector have a lot to say to that. If we could just play that clip.
The more you improve my capacity as a trader to make money, then I probably will not have a problem paying tax. And so today, because there are other issues over and above the tax being implemented, the traders don't feel as though the ecosystem is supportive. And so it's a double tragedy for them. You're taxing me and the business is not good. And so if you asked me, traders are probably feeling the pinch quite a bit as a result of the act. The bill. What you're also likely to see is a lot of private sector organizations letting go of staff as a result of the tight situation they've been put in. And so you will see a surge in unemployed people.
We normally pay tax in the US. The views that are viewed in the US, they are taxed at 30%. Now, if government was serious, they could have asked us all these things. They could have entered bilateral agreement with the US, and we could be paying around 15% instead of 30%. That's what people in Canada do. That's what people in UK do.
Those are concerns that are raised by the first speaker, who is a CEO, the CEO of Brighter Monday. He gets to interact with a lot of youth who are looking for jobs. The second one is a digital content creator, Mutembe, who was talking about the digital taxation that, of course, is going to come into effect with the new Finance Act. They're talking about how the private sector businesses, as we know it, are going to try to cut costs by unemploying a lot of people. And then on the other end, if employing yourself is an option that you could possibly take, digital content creators are saying that we feel like we're going to be double taxed. What do you feel about that?
My take is this. I've told you that, of course, people would not want to be taxed. And it is, we are in this country, we are legislators, and amendments can be done as and when we feel that they ought to be done. So for now, I think it is just fair for us as a country to take off, not to put a lot of negative thoughts and negative publicity on this issue of the Finance Act. Right. Every year there are amendments to the Finance Act, and I believe that this is not an exception. Why are people getting so scared in this particular time? And it's always been the norm that there are changes.
Right.
So in my thinking is that everybody has their opinion. Right. They're entitled to their opinion. But me, I feel that why we are still very much behind in this country is because the country is not getting enough to be able to support the economy. Right. And after all, you know, taxation is taking money from this other arm and actually receiving it from this other one. Right. So there would really be no problem. For me is that I would love that we accept as it is. Mm-hmm. It has been passed, and we are here to check.
Heshimiwa, the digital content creators are saying that they're not against the taxation that is being put in the Finance Act. They want to be more involved. And of course, you've already run a public participation, as we know it. Do you maybe think that you could sample some of the heads of the particular sectors that are going to be affected from the Finance Act and maybe take their views when you're talking about regulation changes, policy shifts?
But that is exactly what I told you when I was giving my presentation, that there were so many proposals that were given, and we spent a whole 2 weeks actually getting views from the public. And one man's food is another man's poison. Others were okay with it, others gave their views, and finally we checked and narrowed down and at least gave an agreed, or we came to an agreed point. So I believe whatever, and I know whatever is right now in the Act is okay. It is a collection, or it is a consideration of all those people who came together and gave us their views.
Right, right.
I told you that, in fact, as per the proposal, we were it was a levy of 3%, but later, due to the many people who came and gave their views, we changed it to 1.5.
Right, right.
The digital creators too also came in and also gave their part of the story, and many of them, and we finally considered it and went to the floor of the House. The legislators also debated on it, and we finally passed. So I believe that it is now time for implementation, and there is no cause of worry. This is something good. It's only that many people want it to look like it is bad, but the Finance Act is okay.
Right, of course. As we ruminate on that, Mheshimiwa, we welcome your views, your comments, or your questions to the particular panel. Of course, you can find us on Twitter at TV47 News. You can also find us on Facebook at TV47KE. You can find me at Hibak Said on those particular platforms. We go for a very short break. We will be right back.
Radio 47 tuko nawe mchana kutwa na usiku kucha. 95.
The news that matters the most is the one that hits close to home. When disasters strike, we are there to inform you. When the bullets are flying, we tell you who's shooting and why. Reporting on your victories, your health, your money, your security, your past, present, and future. We are interested in telling the stories of creativity, hard work, and resilience that you are known for.
That is our job. This is my job. My name is Victor Muyakane, and it's my honor to bring you this news this way every Thursday night on the home of Untold Stories.
Katika majengo haya, hapa ndipo sheria zinapotungwa na zinapopakuliwa. Nitakuletea viongozi mbalimbali, mirengo mbalimbali, wote kwa pamoja wakipika na kupakua. Tutawapa nafasi kuweza kuangazia changamoto na mafanikio ya ugatuzi katika ukumbi wa siasa kila siku ya Jumanne kuanzia saa 1 kamili na kuendelea.
Toka eneo hili la Naivasha kwenye kaunti 032, gatuzi la Nakuru.
Kutoka kaunti ya Elgeyo Marakwet, kaunti 028.
Nikiripotia runinga ya TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Wajir.
Nikiripotia TV47 kutoka kaunti ya Turukana. Kwa matukio yote yanayojiri katika kaunti hii 012.
Kutoka kaunti nambari 1, kaunti ya Mombasa.
Nikiripotia
All right, thank you so much for staying tuned to TV47, your home of untold stories. We were having a discussion on taxation, especially with the new Finance Act and the implications that it will have on businesses, small businesses specifically. And now we're going to be delving into the digital economy and the creative space. This is a fairly tricky sector to be taxing. The Finance Act is going to ensure that content creators are going to be paying 5% withholding tax. Mheshimiwa, if you could just tell us, knowing that this is a very tricky sector to be taxing, what were the modalities that were going into ensuring that is this 5% enough, or is it too little, or is it too much?
Well, based on the public participation that we carried, we felt that as much as how we thought it should still be more, but for a start, we felt that 5% would be good enough. And you see, the world, the country is moving onto the digital platform. If people can be able to make thousands of monies in the digital platform, why not? That is where everybody is shifting to. And if from your office, from the comfort of your house, you can just be able to play around with your phone and you're actually transacting a lot of money, then you're also trading. So we felt that now we can tap on that because people are making money. So it is going to be very unfair to be taxing the normal and ordinary wananchi out there, whereas these guys are also making money. So I see no problem with that.
Right, and if we could just have that running, the digital asset tax, which is a fairly new, domain that the government is trying to tax, will be taxed at the rate of 3% on the transfer or exchange of value of digital assets and intellectual property. It's not fairly new. The digital assets are fairly new, the cryptocurrencies, the Bitcoin, so on and so forth. This is fairly new. However, intellectual property has been there for a very long time. What do you think when is too much too much? How exactly are we as a country taking taxation from this particular sector?
First of all, I'd like to talk to Mheshimiwa. First of all, the thing is that the period they give for what is it called? I'm forgetting the name. Participation.
Yes.
I feel 2 weeks is a bit too much. It's too little. We just close that. But creativity is not like buying skuma or buying a bundle of unga. You cannot tax it the way you quantify. It's very hard to quantify creativity.
Exactly.
So you realize that you cannot quantify my expenses. How much time did I spend at night creating this? How much? So I felt. Also to give people a bit more, and it's quite a new industry. I felt that they should have given people more time, right? Giving people more time, maybe the next 3-4 years to start taxing them. That said and done, it's basically scaring the younger people who want to get into this particular industry. They're scaring them, one, into the person will not venture into it, fearing they'll be losing money, or two, they'll be hiding it. Right, so you're basically creating criminals without wanting.
Do you think that that's a valid concern?
No, but you see, you cannot discriminate in terms of taxation. For example, if you are taxing a teacher who is earning around 30,000 or thereabout, or anybody else, or anybody earning over 24,000, you in the digital world. In one transaction, 2 transactions, you can even make more than that in one day, not even in a month. So what would be wrong with that? And I've said that if somebody actually can be able to trade in that, because of course you'll use M-Pesa and those modes of transfer of funds, so that is how people will know, or the taxman will know how much you are dealing with. So I believe that the young people who are also earning and using their intellect to earn through the phone are Kenyans normal, just like the others. If you can tax those other ones, why not this?
Right, Mheshimiwa. However, the government was planning to add employment, especially on the digital space. 1 million youth is what we're talking about. 35% of the youth are not employed at the moment. Don't you think that taxing, this digital tax is going to throw them off from taking jobs? Because now they're like, is this really an amount that I'm going to be paying? What are the modalities? How is this going to be done?
But it has got some, if you are dealing with a certain amount, I'm not very sure right now the particular amount, but an amount more exceeding a certain amount, that is when taxation starts. So I'm not really understanding why it should be a problem. Yeah, if you are earning money whatever way. What is the difference if a youth opens up shop right now, or a youth opens, for example, a petrol station or whatever, or sells gas, or is selling whatever mode they're selling, and you are saying that it is okay for that one to pay tax, whereas this one who is getting, the same youth who is getting the same amount of money does not want to, should not pay tax. You see, it is a matter of, the law does not discriminate.
Right.
And that my dear friend here said that you would have given more time. All along, they've not been paying, so and it's not that it is starting today. It has always been there. And there's a start and a beginning of something. Even had we stayed for that 3 years, as he says, and as his proposal is, even come that time, people would still say that give us more time.
Mr. Tuva, is this a valid way in which revenue collection can be expanded for the country?
I really don't feel this target market was the best to target. Again, I still insist quite a new industry, right? Compared to people who are selling stocks for X amount of years, people who are selling land and, you know, the landlords and all these other people doing shops. That's a very old industry. Creativity on the other side is not as old as you want to show us. It's quite new. You look at the influencers we currently have. Most of them are buying their fast cars. You know, they're very happy about doing their fast, you know, 1-2 things, an event here and there. And you need to understand that it's not creativity is not very direct. Yeah, so you realize someone is showcasing on their platform a new Range Rover, but in real sense, it might not be. You know, it's still part of the whole creativity industry. So what the legislators went and did, they sat down, went through people's profiles, and based on that, they pegged the whole industry on this particular item, which I did not feel was fair, right? So, as I said, it's creativity. You can't really pinpoint whatever is happening, or, you know, the truth from the fallacy.
Right.
So I felt a bit more discretion was supposed to be put into it. People really sit down and understand what is going on. Of course, the KK government has really introduced a lot of young people into the government, so I'm sure that helped. But I still felt there's some bit. This is a point they've not touched.
Right, and taxing the creative economy is quite hard. However, as the conversation comes to a close, Mheshimiwa, as your committee was discussing some of, you know, the measures that they're going to take to expand tax collection by 200 billion shillings, do you feel that maybe there are sectors that, you know, it might have gone wrong on, and some sectors that they had, you know, pinpointed correctly? Because he is raising a very valid concern.
Well, to me, I see it differently, because if I may ask, what is being taxed? It is the amount that you are making. So regardless of whatever you are doing, it is the money that you are raising, and that is what is being taxed. So there are also young people who are opening shops right now. There are young people who are entering to new business now, and they're making money. So the idea here is what is being taxed is what you are making. If you are doing, if you're in the creative industry and you are not making money, then you're not being taxed. So the idea here is that you are being taxed because you are actually trading and you are actually making money in this particular space. And I don't see anything wrong with that. I thought probably, as you had started, is you are asking whether the amount is okay or not okay. But if somebody is making money, regardless of whether the industry is new or not, then you have to pay taxes.
Right. Another concern that was raised in one of the clips that we played of a content creator, Mutembe, he was saying that a lot of content creators who have taken to these platforms to earn a living are so scared of double taxation. They're already paying tax in another country, and now there's this 5%. What would you say about that?
Well, to me, what is clear is that everything is should be done under the law. Double taxation should not come in, and if they prove that it is, of course, anybody would not want to be taxed twice. But now we need to understand that is it actually really double taxation? If they prove that it is double taxation, then I believe that we will have to look into it and also amend or make changes, so that should not be an issue. When you are starting something, there are of course challenges, and that is why there are amendments. Every now and then we are making amendments. So I'm not seeing any problem with that.
Right. Mr. Tuva, what are your thoughts on this? Double taxation is one of the concerns that they brought up. I'm already paying tax in the US. That is where this app is coming from. Why should I pay tax here also?
Yeah, again, it still comes back to participation, right? Because I believe it came from a ministry, then to Treasury, then to his office, right? And the other legislators. I've not seen them come to the ground and talk to, sit them under the mkanju or under the mango tree. I've not seen that. So everything was done, completed, and the final document was drafted. And okay, fine, this is the plate. What do you want to remove? Yeah. So the plate was already there. I felt that this should have taken longer, right? Taken longer to first of all understand the industry. Know the challenges. It's not the same as transport industry. I put fuel from here. This is my expense. It's a bit more. It's a bit more sensitive and a bit more complex than the normal kind of businesses. And I still believe that it's mostly encouraging. It's mostly done by the younger guys, the younger generation, and I feel people need to be given time to grow, right? Let
me just correct something so that we go on record that because he said that he's not seeing people going under a tree. The public participation on a committee level, we did it over 2 weeks while we were in Hilton Garden Inn Hotel. Okay. And we actually received thousands of people who came, over 3,000. Now, the last one, we came to the public in KICC, and everybody came and were giving their views a whole day. So I don't know whether you're not aware that we did that public participation, though it was not under a tree, but it was in KICC, it was in Garden Inn. We received over 3,000 applicants, and we had each and every, and we considered them. And that's how we came up with that 5%. Right,
Mheshimiwa, of
and
course.
I understand. Maybe it's just to respond to him.
And this is the final rebuttal.
Yeah.
Yes.
To me, participation does not come from the ministry to the treasury, then now bringing back to the people. That is still very high-end discussions, right? I felt that if you want to discuss about me and my life, first of all, come to me. Then now go to the ministry, then the treasury, then the legislature. That's how I felt it should be done. Not the ministry, then, after you've discussed the high level, well, is when now you bring it down for me to fine-tune. Right.
A very interesting conversation that we've had here on the marketplace. Of course, this is going to be continuing, and you can give your views. You can be getting more information on this particular topic. We were discussing the implications that the Finance Act that is going to be implemented is going to be having on businesses. And maybe even as we have taken all of these things into consideration, the people are the people who are going to be making that decision finally. And maybe Stanley, if you could just tell us, what are some of the implications? Right. We've already gotten the final regards from that. I think we're going to be wrapping up on the marketplace. We've already gotten enough that we needed to get. After this short break, we're going to close shop. Do stay tuned.